Good afternoon or good day. My name is Montana Cain, and I am a proud member of Leadership Tulsa's Thrive Cohort 5, and I'm excited to share my presentation today, which is going to be less of a formal project that I'll share, but more so my journey through this program and what I've learned. And one of the major lessons that I learned was to slow down and that it's okay to pause, which was hard for me as someone who is a perfectionist and a type A. I really wanted to walk away with a plan and that I was ready to implement, but Mike and Marcia and others encouraged me and let me know that it's okay. So I am sharing that journey with you all. So the theme of Leadership Tulsa's Thrive 5 cohort was education, and I'm a former educator. So when I saw that theme, I was immediately connected to it. As a Black educator, I didn't learn to be critical, and I didn't learn about anti-racist teaching or critical race theory or any of those things until I was in graduate school after the classroom. And so I felt guilty, and I also just felt like I did a disservice to my students. And so when I came to the program, I had this already laid out idea that I was going to create an academy or a series of workshops to help train teachers on that pedagogy while they are currently in the classroom. But then I realized that that did not quite sit well with me because, again, doing so would have kind of put teachers as a problem to a systems level change or issue. And so I really kind of wrestled with that particular idea. And so during the program, as we learned about more about Tulsa and this, just talking to key stakeholders, I was able to acknowledge where I am, right? So I came into the program with this idea and plan that was based on who I am and what I wanted to do, but it had nothing to do at all with Tulsa. And so once I learned more about Tulsa and also recognizing that I am no longer an educator, I'm an evaluator. So I really wanted to select a project that spoke to both of those. And so with me being an evaluator, I am constantly working with programs that are working in communities and working to serve communities. And so being in Tulsa, I wanted to explore that arena a little bit more. And so as we learned about different topics, I started to connect the dots. And so we started the program talking about education, and I thought we were going to do a deep dive into education, but we actually learned about teen pregnancy. We learned about the criminal justice system. We learned about food insecurity and all these other topics. And for me, it realized that even though education was the theme, there's so many other systems at play if we actually want to change the lived experiences and outcomes. And so certain themes that bubbled up for me was philanthropy. You know, as an evaluator, I am often working with programs that are funded by private philanthropists. And so that funding comes often with restrictions or just other mandates around how those programs look, who's delivering them, and other impacts. And then also, whenever we talked about any system, any problem, any issue, and we talked about did a factor analysis, anything that, or every time we did a factor analysis, the things that matter to people when we narrowed it down and boiled it down came down to money and power. So for me, I'm really trying to figure out, or really interested in exploring, how does philanthropy, nonprofits, money, power, how do all of those things come into play when we talk about subjugated communities? And we already know the history of, Black and brown people in Tulsa, so I don't have to go there, but like, how do all of these things work together for their good and for their bad? And so I am really interested in exploring what that can and does look like in Tulsa. So what I'm presenting or where I am now is not necessarily an impact project, but more so an unpack project. And so for me, how do we move beyond the Band-Aid and facilitate systems level change? And as someone who's in evaluation, this is important to me because oftentimes I work with nonprofit organizations who have great hearts and minds and they're providing resources or programs to their community. But it's also important to have that conversation about why those programs and resources needed in the first place and how do we begin funding there? Not that you don't need the other services, but how do we begin to fund and look at systems level change so that we're equipping communities so that they don't necessarily have to rely on that private funding. And so for me, I just want to explore what does and can this look like in Tulsa. And so in terms of, coming with a project and thinking about your the action items, there are 3 areas. And I kind of came in thinking I was going to be in the intervene phase, but I am not. So I'm still sitting. I had to back it up a little bit. And so I'm sitting here in observe phase. And so that's where I am now, is just identifying who the players are, having those conversations and just learning about that particular issue. And so just my next steps and things to do that I'll be working on once the program concludes is getting that list of nonprofits together. And then the third bullet, which is defining systems level change. This is something that came from our peer consultations where I really need to hone in on my definitions. And so this will be something that I will want to co-create as well. So looking at across different literatures, but then also as I talk to people, how are they defining systems level change so that I can begin to articulate that. And then I do want to continue the peer consultation process. So identifying some other colleagues in this group that I can continue to share my process with so that I can continue to get feedback from them and then just continue those sense making sessions with them so that I can, just make sense of the information that I'm gathering. And so I don't know exactly where my project where I'll end up, but I do know that whatever I do, I want it to contribute to improving the outcomes and lived experiences of Black and Brown communities. Thank you.